Americans have a little more faith in the Supreme Court, though overall opinion on the court remains low. This is all according to a new Marquette Law School poll just released overnight. The poll was taken during the last week of July and found 57% of Americans disapprove of the court. That number is down from the 61% reported back in May. The latest poll also finding 43% of Americans do approve of the court, which is actually up from 39% in May. When it comes to recent decisions made by the Supreme Court, 67% of Americans say they agree with the decision to keep access to a well-known abortion medication. However, 59% disagree with the decision giving immunity to presidents for official acts.